Being real summary. This is one topic under the identity umbrella, and this past week we talked about work, how it influences our identity, and vice versa, and started to talk a little bit about purpose, enough to know that we have to spend a little bit more time on that. But we'll get into that. So we just kind of talked a little bit, open discussion, following our model there, of listening, sharing, and then just getting a feel for the people in the room. Now, in the Being Real, the OG group, most of the people in there are retired, so it was an interesting thing trying to get us, I should say, to a place where we could really, really talk about the work side of things, because it's been a while for some of them, and it also, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. It might sound like that. I don't mean that in a bad way. I think it's good because the perspectives that you get are over a generation, a long period of time. Also, it was interesting when I asked about work and we talked about work, everybody went to jobs. Now, the other thing in the group is, and that might sound weird at first, but the other thing in the group is we're made up mostly of females. I think 80% of the group's female. But there was no mention of like raising children for work or taking care of the home or things like that. And I'm not saying that to be stereotypical by any stretch. My dad actually was the one that was home growing up. So, I mean, that's, if you're watching this and you don't know me, I'm not being stereotypical at all there, or whatever you want to call it. But it didn't come up. And I expected it to, because that's work. That is the work that we do. Raising children is work. It's the hardest job you'll ever have, in my opinion. And probably most others that have had kids. So that was an interesting thing too, and I brought that out a little bit later, like after we talked about it. I was like, nobody said anything about this. Well, that's not okay. So our version of work is job. That's where our head goes, right? Even folks in the room that maybe didn't have a job through long periods of time because they were raising a family. And I think that's something that society does to us. When we talk about work in scripture or in just in general, I mean, work is not what you do 8 to 5 and get paid for. Work is just the work that you do. If I go out and weed the garden, that's work. I don't do that. I don't have a garden. I don't weed. I don't even cut my own grass. My wife does that. I'm not a green thumb. So that's a horrible example. But the point is, work, it just means work. Work you put into. If you go help somebody move from one place to the other, that's work. It's not a job. You're not getting paid to do it, but you're doing work. So trying to split out work from job is a thing that I'll challenge you to do. Like, just when we talk about work, let's not use the version of work that is society's version, which is the job. Because as you get further, or as you try to apply your gifts, your identity, everything like that, knowing the difference, or at least being able to separate those two is important when you're applying all the different things that you have as your identity. It's not just limited to a job, not even close. A job is a small piece of it, but it does have an impact. So anyway, I digress there. Now you know what it's like when you're in a group. Speaking of which, this is the other thing I want to say. I was a bit off my game this past week. And I just thought of this before I started recording this video. I was off my game because of my job. Now, not in a bad way necessarily, but I was doing reviews for people at work, and I had a bunch of stuff going on, so I was like back to back all day long meetings for a couple days. And then I had like 3 minutes between work and then going to the Being Real group. No chance to like reset, and I was off my game. And when you're in a group that is open and fluid, you kind of have to be on your game to really get the most out of it. So I apologize to the people that were there. I was not completely on my game, and yeah, and that's that's one of the downsides. That's a downside of not just opening a book and following a book to study and going through it the traditional way. Talked about like work and how do you think work identifies? No, that's not what I said. Just work. What do you think of work? What is work? That's how this all started. I'm probably saying stuff out of order again because I'm representing what happened in group. I was off my game. I'm probably off my game right now. There you go. Real world. So kind of what we came up with as far as what work is in general is it compared like alongside identity is work influenced the identity. Work influenced what I did. Work. I can't read my own writing. It's a combination of bad eyesight and horrible handwriting. But I'm writing stuff down as I go so I remember it. I guess you have to. Wait, I don't know. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. So, one of the other things, sorry, one of the other things that I did, I stopped half sentence too. So not only can I not read it, it was half sentence. Okay. Oh, that was the other thing I did. Okay, so one of the things that I asked was, when you introduce yourself, how do you describe yourself? It's just a general question. It's just kind of interesting because initially people are like, I don't even know what you mean. It's like, well, what's the first thing that you say to somebody, or once said, to somebody, whatever. And pretty much, as I expected, the women in the group would say something along the lines of, I'm a mother, I have a couple kids, I am, what that kind of thing, right? So, and most of them, what they did for a living didn't even enter the top three, right? What are the first three things that you would say? Didn't enter it. Now, I think one of them did, but the men in the room, which there are only a couple, that's not the first three things that they say. Now, that is something that is very different for men and women. When a man introduces himself, normally, again, I'm not everybody, but it's, I'm an IT, or I'm an accountant, or I'm a like that, and then it's the other stuff. Usually the first thing that's said is what you do for a living. And with women, it's not that way. And that's one of the other differences between men and women, and why we talked about that prior. So, just an interesting thing there. So, you can extrapolate from there that work is more, your job, we'll say, not work, your job is more tied to your identity if you're a male. There's a stronger tie there. I would feel comfortable saying that, based on not only what the group, how it came up in the group, but just doing the research and knowing that for quite a long time. Then I asked 3 questions. Now here's the thing, I asked these same 3 questions to the guys that I work with. That day, I asked them the same questions. So, question number 1, Why do you work? Open-ended, right? And I'll just tell you some of the responses. Didn't have to. Was fun because of where I worked, and I wanted to help people. Okay. Another one was only worked because had to. Be the breadwinner. Another one was fulfillment. They feel complete when they work. And then, oh, by the way, some of the stereotypes were somewhat broken in the group as well, because fulfillment and feeling complete at work would normally be something I would expect a guy to say. And again, I'm just being real. And that didn't come from one of the guys. Another one's like, I like to eat and I need food, and I need a car and electricity, so necessity. Another one was to support self and kids when younger, and then when older, it's to stay engaged. And that's what I meant earlier when I said it's interesting, and it really gives a lot more perspective because you have a lifetime of information with people that are retired. If you're talking about jobs, right? There's always work, even when you're retired, there's work. We'll talk about that later. But in some of these discussions, the recent discussions we've had about identity, it's, well, when do you mean? And it's like, oh yeah, I got to think about that. Like, when are we talking? And it does vary, right? How you are in your 20s is different than how you are in your 50s, is different than how you are in your 70s, for a bunch of reasons. So doing this in this group has really given me insight, has given us insight. But what I've taken away is a lot of insight at different stages in life that I can pass on to others, right? And not one of the things that we do is we look at life through the lens that we currently have, and it is sometimes a struggle in the group to be able to look at something through the eyes of a 30-year-old or 20-year-old, to reset and go, why would I have thought then? That's difficult, because even when we give advice and things like that, we give it through the lens that we currently have. But if we're able to put ourselves where we were, or have some understanding of where we were when we were that age, I think the advice becomes much more applicable, and you connect better with those folks. Because a lot of times the disconnect is, if a 65-year-old's talking about work, they're talking about work toward the end of their career, or not working now, and work not being a thing, or whatever. It's just a different mindset than they had in their 20s. So let's try to reset ourselves and put ourselves in that time frame. If you're older, if you're younger, piece of advice: when you ask somebody older their advice, don't take the first thing they say as what they mean or would have done at the age that you are now. Ask, like, okay, so when you were 20, that's what you would have done. And then what I'm going to guess is they're going to go, oh, no, I learned this, but when I was 20 I would have done this, and that's going to be where you connect better. But I think it's on both sides, where if the younger generation that's asking the questions has an understanding that the initial reaction is going to be through the lens that you currently have, just like your lens is the current lens. So just, I'm probably not saying that really well. Again, not really on the game, but you kind of get the point here, I hope. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Second question. Oh my gosh, this is representative of how it was in the group. Why did you do what you do? Because most of the people in the room are like retired with this group. In the meeting. So, why did you do the stuff that you did? So, So this is when it gets fun, because You'll see. And when you ask this question, this goes back to when you started, right? So I have, 60-plus-year-olds in there going back to like how they ended up doing what they do for a job. There's some interesting stuff here. I learned some things about people that I've known for a long time that I didn't know. Okay. One person picked accounting because it was the first in the list of jobs, careers, when the guidance counselor was pressuring them to select something. And I guess this guidance counselor was very pushy. And I like on a second or third time of like, you got to know what you got to do. Let me pick something, blah, 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 blah. This person looked up and saw the first thing in the list was accounting. That's how they selected their job, career. And did it for, retired from it and still doing it. Okay. One other one started in teaching as a student, loved it. Again, I can't read my writing, but started as a student aide. There weren't many options for a female at the time. I believe the comment was, you're either a nurse or a teacher pretty much if you're going to go to school. Something like that. And that's not me saying it, that was them saying. Another one was a nurse. Liked the sciences, liked helping people. But it was just very interesting. Those were the three kind of key ones that stuck out to me that I'll talk about. Very different. Like, very much, nowadays you're like, what do you want to do? How do you fit in? How do you do? And you've heard the term, pick something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. It's something like that. And it's kind of true. I'm going to tell you, it's kind of true. It is, it's still work. So that's not true. But if you select a career or a path what I'm going to say, if you select a career or a path that fits your identity, work isn't miserable. I'll even say it's enjoyable. I mean, I'm proof of that, to be honest, because I'm playing in the realm. I'm playing to my strengths in who I am, understanding my identity better. And we're going to next week we're going to talk about that. But that's just one of those things. Sorry. So we talk about that some more. Yeah. You do not get anywhere near the experience watching these summary videos. I don't know how many times I've said it, but this is just to give you a general idea of what we talked about, give you a couple tidbits. But having real conversations is what this is about. This is no substitute. And here's the thing. You don't have to be in a group to ask somebody the questions that we asked in the group. And that's why I give those out here. You can have the same questions. I literally had these same questions with the people I work with as part of the one-on-ones that I had with them, to get me a better feel of who they are, what they want to be, why they do what they do. Are they in the right place? Does their career seem like it's the right thing for them? And what do they? And then the other question that I asked at work that I didn't ask here, was where do you want to do? Because everybody in the room is retired. That was at the group pretty much. So what do you want to do in your career? You're not really thinking that at the level, at the point in life that they are. And I'm not either at the point in life I am. So ask your friend that question. Ask somebody else that question. Just those three questions. Why do you work? General. See what the response is. Don't lead. Why do you do what you do? Right? And then what do you want to do work-wise? Some really good conversations. I had some really good conversations. All right. So another thing, we watched the video why we work so much. We watched a couple videos. They'll be on the Being Real Work and Purpose page on 122.us. So then it was, okay, you could have a job, a career, or a calling. And everybody went through like the different parts of their life. Like there's a lot of discussion, but this is what I'll tell you. Summarizing it, someone would be like, well, I had a job because I just is out of necessity. Yep, got it. But my second job was a calling. Okay. Another one was the first thing was a job, and then it turned into a career. Another one was I had a career, and then a calling. Right, a career was, I think this was, if I remember correctly, she was a nurse. That was her career, and then she had a calling to continue to help and serve people. So another one was just career. Another one was career that turned into a calling, but they weren't called to the job that they did. That was the same person, if I remember correctly, that picked accounting because it was the top of the list. Just saying, like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you weren't called to do that. Probably. I say that jokingly, but we watched. We went into the purpose a little bit. We watched a TED Talk, which is a really good one. I think it's a really good one. That'll be out. That's out on the Work and Purpose page, and a couple things there. Focus on who, not why. So that video will actually walk you through a method to define your purpose, which is interesting. It's definitely something you want to do if you're not sure. And as we go into the next week, we're gonna wrap a bow on the identity side of it. Now that doesn't mean we're done with identity, because identity comes with us wherever we go. We're just gonna have a better understanding of it. But we're gonna wrap that up the next meeting, and then we'll get into whatever else we get into. But as far as this one goes, work does impact identity to some extent. We didn't dig as deep there as I would have wanted, to be honest. But that's just how it went. That was the flow of it. And one of the other things that came up that we didn't really dive deeper into was the impact that having just a job or picking your career off of a board or doing the first thing that came and just staying there because that's what you felt like you had to do, what impact that had on you. We didn't really get into that, so we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the next meeting and then wrap this all up. But that and purpose we'll talk a little bit more about, and we'll see what we come up with there. And if we don't come up with anything, that's cool. But a little bit more digging on those two topics, and then we're going to wrap up identity and figure out where we go from here after that meeting. So thanks for watching. Sorry for the whatever you want to call this, but it's pretty much how I was in the group, so it's accurate. Keep being around.